Hi, my name is MK Williams and I'm a published author, and today I'm bringing you the third installment on my series on podcasts and how you as an author can make the most of this new medium that's very popular to help promote your books. So today I'm going to talk about how to specifically prepare for your podcast appearance. So one of the things that I will suggest first is know how you are going to be having this interview. If it's on Skype, Google Chat, your phone, whatever it is, check that it's working. Your speakers, your headphone, everything is plugged in correctly. Several of the podcasts that I've been on have done test records. They've done test sessions. So a good podcast host will do that with you because they want to make sure their audio is saving correctly and then it sounds good on their end. So usually the host will work with you on that, but you just want to make sure for yourself that you have backups, you have everything planned. Also make sure that whatever device you are on is charged and that it's plugged in. For as much as you could say, oh, I had a full charge, but if this conversation goes on, if it's a really good, engaging dynamic, maybe the finished product episode will be 30 minutes, but you talked for an hour and a half to go over things, so you want to make sure things are charged, things are plugged in, take care of it. Another issue that I've specifically had on my very first podcast that I was on is I had this really large glass of water because I was afraid, I'm talking, I might get a little nervous, I might need a little water, this huge glass. And I answered a question, I took a sip, the host started to talk, and all of a sudden when I put the glass down, it just spilled everywhere. And in the middle of the interview I had to say, I'm sorry, I need to move my computer because I think that this might break right now because I just spilled water everywhere. So if you're gonna have a water bottle, make sure that it has a stopper on the top of it, so that way if it does fall over, it doesn't break your computer. Learn from my mistakes. I will also say that if this is a voice-only recording, you only have to worry about your audio quality. Usually I would suggest maybe going into a quiet room. Even sometimes people go into their closet and close the door because the clothing provides insulation. So that's one thing to do. If it is also a video podcast and you want to think about your lighting, where you are, again, if it's quiet, if there's a lot going on behind you, you don't necessarily want to have it with this beautiful window view behind you because all of a sudden some lawn person comes by and they're blowing leaves and it's really loud and there's this distraction in the background. You want to minimize the distractions so that way the focus from both the host and the audience is on what you have to say. I will also say you should listen to other episodes of that podcast. So as I mentioned in the first episode in this series, you want to make sure that you're pitching podcasts that you're engaged with. You really like their content, you like what they have to say, you like what the host has to say, you really want to be in front of that audience. So you necessarily want to make sure that you've been listening to their episodes so you understand the conversation style, the tone, and any guaranteed questions. So a lot of podcasts will have a quick wrap up or one thing that they do in every episode. So you don't necessarily want to be there when they ask you their signature question and you say, I don't know, I never thought about that. That's not a good look for you because it's clear that you weren't paying attention or engaging with the podcast before, so it makes you look inauthentic. So make sure that you're listening to their podcast episodes as it's coming up, and also cluing in on anything they've recently discussed. So if they're asking you a question, you can say, oh yeah, I remember back on episode blah 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 when you talked with so-and-so that this came up too. So it helps you help them, and it should be a good symbiotic relationship. It should be a good flow conversation, and so you being aware of all that information helps you be a better guest on the podcast. You also want to make sure you know what's okay on the show and what isn't. So some podcasts are okay with using cuss words if you're a very just open person with your language. Some are absolutely against it. So several that I've been on, will give me a quick disclaimer, we'll do a quick test chat beforehand and they just reiterate things. Others will say say what you want, do what you want. This is a chance to showcase your personality as well. I'm not going to censor you. So you want to hear that from the host, but you should also just be listening for that throughout the tone of their podcast series. And you want to make sure that you are prepared. So the best hosts that I've worked with always want to make sure their guests look and sound good because that obviously makes it better engaging content for them on their podcast. So they have sent me seated questions. They've said, what are the questions you want us to ask you at the end of the interview to make sure you're getting your point across? You will want to promote your book, obviously, but what you really want to make sure that you're doing is providing value to the audience. When you provide value to the audience, you provide value to your host. It's a good symbiotic relationship. People listen to podcasts for two reasons: to be entertained and to be educated. So you need to be able to provide both of those ideally in one package. And at the end, the host will say, oh, like, where can people find you for more? And you can say, oh, well, my books are here and my social media links are here. So you have that quick chance to plug that. You don't want to spend the entire podcast just saying, hey, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, because guess what? People get annoyed by that. They won't buy your book. So that's some of the things you want to do to prepare, is really just make sure you have answers prepared to common questions that you know you'll be asked. Really think about what they're going to talk to you about based on the topic of their podcast, and go from there as far as planning what you're going to say, practicing what you're going to say, and understanding what their common guidelines are for what you can and can't say. So I hope this has been really helpful for you as you're getting ready for your podcast appearance. And if you found this helpful, please click like or subscribe below. Now you can get back to writing your book.